What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Raptors Report. It is time to talk about the Toronto Raptors and why they need to learn from their previous mistakes. I will be breaking down the details of this video in today's video, so if you are ready to watch, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. Now, as you guys know, I do like to give out shout outs on my channel here, and the shout out for today's video goes out to Alex Doe. Alex, thank you so much for supporting this channel through your likes and comments. It is very much appreciated. Now, what do I mean by the Raptors need to learn from their previous mistakes? Well, when we talk about the Raptors front office and Masai Ujiri, one word he often used was evaluate. He wanted to evaluate the roster, and what that resulted in was the Raptors not capitalizing and getting very few assets and returns for players that were on expiring contracts. You saw it with Norman Powell, you saw it with OG Anunoby, and even Pascal Siakam. There were offers that you could argue were potentially better previously that they had received, but the Raptors just kept waiting and waiting and playing the waiting game until you essentially had players that were on the last year of their contract. And well, that doesn't leave you with a lot of power when you're negotiating with other teams. Now, the Raptors, obviously, we know Masai Ujiri is no longer part of the front office, but his right-hand man, Bobby Webster, still is. And you got to wonder if he is going to be able to learn from some of the mistakes that Masai Ujiri has previously made. Even though he was a part of the team, he'll have his own ability to be kind of his own boss and kind of have that thinking process for himself. So the Raptors obviously are in a very peculiar situation when we talk about this roster. And what I mean by capitalizing is when you look around the league, and if I give you a player that could play the shooting guard position, that can play the small forward position, can give you about 8-12 points a game on most teams, will give you 40% shooting from the three-point line, you're probably thinking, wow, this is a great player to have on any playoff team. And this is no other than Ochai Agbaji that I'm speaking of. Now, why would the Raptors want to trade someone like Ochai Agbaji? I mean, he fills all the needs that the Raptors currently need, which is, good defense. He also needs, three-point shooting, which he does fill as well. And he's on a cheap contract. Well, for one simple reason only, and that is because Ochai Agbaji is on an expiring contract. He is in the last season of $6.3 million contract. And we know the Raptors' inability to really negotiate great contracts. As we've seen, Rich Paul came out and said that Brandon Ingram received more from the Raptors than he would have in free agent. And look, I understand the sentiment that, Raptors need to pay players more because obviously you're playing in Canada, higher taxes, whatever the situation is, but that still doesn't justify the Raptors situation that they currently are in. So taking a look at this chart here, shout out to Keith Smith. This was a few months ago. It lists the amount of teams in the NBA that are currently over the luxury tax. And of course, the Raptors are one of 11 teams that are over the luxury tax. And also they are 7 NBA teams that are currently over the first apron. And you see the Raptors is $3.5 million here. And as you take a look at the next chart, they're actually closer to about $5.8 million over the luxury tax. And look at the teams ahead of the Toronto Raptors on here: the Clippers, the Lakers, Rockets, Mavericks, Minnesota, Knicks. This isn't a position the Raptors should be in, considering that they are a team that are aspiring to make the playoffs, let alone trying to win a championship. Most of these teams here listed are contending for championships or are trying to make a deep playoff run. And the Raptors have absolutely no business here, which is why I think the Raptors should seriously consider trading someone like Ochai before they end up paying him 13, 14, $50 million or even $12 million. The Raptors are in no position to be adding more money on her, especially when you have cheaper contracts available. But also take this into consideration when we talk about the Toronto Raptors position is when you look at the bench. You saw the summer league, and this is where I really started to think about things like this, is the Raptors bench is quite deep, but you also have to be able to give your young players some minutes. You also have to be able to give them more touches as well. And that is where I think Ochai Agbaji becomes a lot more expendable, but also you want to capitalize on this because you can essentially trade someone like Ochai, who's going to be very valuable around the NBA. You look at most playoff teams can absorb a $6 million somewhat dollar contract, which isn't too expensive. And then you can get some assets in return, whether that assets comes in the form of players, whether that asset comes in the form of picks. Now, realistically, you're probably not going to get a very good first round pick, but what you can do is maybe get 2 or 3 second round picks. Now, before people question, well, we did trade a late first round pick for Ochai and Kelly, do keep in mind that these second round picks aren't only valuable in terms of, you finding your next Norman Powell, whether you're drafting 40, 45th, 37th, These picks are very valuable for when you're ready to compete and takes the next level in the playoffs. You can essentially look to package some of these second round picks with their own to acquire complementary players in a few years when the Raptors feel like they're ready to take that next step in the playoffs. But in terms of the Raptors roster as well, I do want to quickly mention this because when we're talking about Ochai being a little bit more expendable, you do need to look at this chart here and you need to understand that the Raptors bench here currently possesses, obviously Jamal Shed at the point guard position. You're going to have Grady Dick at the two. You're going to have someone like Jacoby Walter playing the three. And then, of course, your five is going to be realistically Colin Murray Boyles. And the five, the four is going to be, sorry, Colin Murray Boyles. And the five is probably going to be split minutes between Sandro Mamukemishvili or, Scotty Barnes, or if maybe, even Jakob Pertl playing with the bench. And this is where, you question where the minutes going to come from for everyone if the Raptors were to keep Ochai Agbaji. And also, you don't forget about someone like Jamison Battle as well. I think he can play the small forward position. Ideally, you want to play him at the shooting guard position. But again, you have to find minutes for guys like Jamison Battle. You have to find minutes for Jacoby and Grady Dick as well. And most importantly, not just minutes, but touches as well. And just considering that they make so much less money and give you similar production as to what, someone like Ochai can. I know his defense is much better, but still, I still feel like he is expendable. And $6.3 million isn't a ton, to be spending on for playoff teams. And you could essentially, if you're able to get 3 second round picks in the future, do it. You know what? Just do it. And it's not so much of the players you'll take in the second round, but again, the value of having second round picks, just because picks are becoming so much more valuable with the new CBA rules. And just when you look at the Eastern Conference overall, tell me most teams aren't going to be making desperation moves come, whether it's a trade deadline or even months before, because all of those teams could use someone like Ochai Agbaji. Ochai Agbaji is not, someone that's going to help you win a championship, but he's one of those great complementary players that for playoff teams could have him coming off the bench. The Lakers are going to come calling. They're going to be desperate for someone like him as well. So there's going to be a handful of teams, and the Raptors will have several options. But not only that, but even if you were to package someone like Ochai Agbaji and Jonathan Mogbo, and potentially package them together, they don't make a ton of money. You can maybe try to fill a position for the future as well, particularly that center position as well. So again, I know we have Ulrich Chomche, who a lot of fans are excited about. I'm well aware that we have Mamu Kemishvili, but Mamu isn't going to be here long term. Ulrich is probably realistically still 1.5 seasons away from being a consistent, backup center that can play 60 plus games for you in the regular season as well. So again, this is my mindset of why I believe the Raptors should move quickly rather than just going into the late into the season where you have a bunch of players that need, extensions. Obviously, they have tried to move off of RJ Barrett as well, but the amount of money he's making, it just makes him very, very untradeable at the moment. And you know what? It is a safety blanket to have given Brandon Ingram's injury as well. And even Scotty has had his moments with the injury. So again, this is my thought process behind this video and why I think the Raptors should look to move off of someone like Ochai, given his contract situation, given the amount of minutes he's going to play. And he's also going to be taking touches away from some of the younger guys as well, right? Like he's taking that leap. His value is very high at the moment. Try to capitalize on this because if you go into the regular season and let's say he has an injury or he does have a regression from last season, now all of a sudden you're stuck with him and you don't want to pay him money, but you also can't get a lot of value in terms of trading him as well. So this is why I think Ochai would be a very valuable trade asset for the Raptors and they need to capitalize on this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, I do have a trivia question for you today. And the trivia question for today is, prior to joining the Raptors, what job did Bobby Webster have? Was it A, CIA agent? Was it B, professional ballet dancer? Was it C, NBA head office as salary cap expert? Or is it D, worked as a draft scout in Europe? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. And I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.